Would you like to have 4 losses and be ranked number 1? Or would you like to have no losses and be ranked number 14? Now, I want you to just think about that. Just ponder that real fast, right? You play these games all the time. Well, okay, this is the game, though. I got a magic wand, boom, and I can hit you with it. You're going to have 4 losses in the sport of mixed martial arts, but you're going to be ranked number 1. Or you're going to have no losses in the sport of mixed martial arts. You're going to be ranked number 14. Which would you rather? One, you've proven. I mean, don't forget that. When you walk out there and you come back, you don't have very many things in this sport. The reality is going to be perception. You don't have very many things, but your record you do have. That can't be changed. It can't be added to and it can't be taken away from. So if you walked out there and you found a way and you were completely undefeated, no man had the skills, no man that you've ever found had the skills to beat you. I would have to assume that you would feel great about that, and that's real. A ranking of number 14, would that hurt your feelings? That's subjective. And think about it in that aspect. I'm not trying to convince you that would be the reality. If you were ranked number 14, but you were completely undefeated. Now you rank number 1. So somebody has looked at you and they've looked at the rest of the field. Your losses aren't factored in, or if they are, so's everybody else's, and you got common opponents. And however we came to this conclusion, there was 4 times that you walked out there, 4 times that you got embarrassed and or hurt. 4 times where a decision, or at least the outcome, went against you. But overall, you're ranked number 1. And that would be pretty cool. That would have to be very, very cool. And I ask you it from that perspective because I'm not any different than you guys. My whole life, I've had somebody I wanted to impress. Sometimes you'll call it please. Sometimes you'll call it make proud. But it was always, if I did a good job at my chores at home, it's because I was trying to please, impress, make proud my father. If I got good grades in school, I was trying to impress, please, make proud my teacher. If I did well in sport and put in that extra time, ran that final sprint extra hard, I was trying to impress, please, make proud my coach. So, Ian Garry has said that he has no interest in fighting Mike and Venom Page. He only wants to fight people ranked higher than him. And that is a shockingly interesting comment for me to hear from a guy who's undefeated. That ranking number is subjective. There is no teacher, to use my example, that's going to give you that look of approval. There is no coach, to use my example, that's going to give you that pat on the back on your way out the door. We don't even know who the rankings committee is. They have never identified themselves. We do not know if they're in North America. We don't know that it's not done by a computer program like the BCS used to have for college football. We don't know if there's 100 of them or if there's 5 of them. We don't know if they get together on Zoom, Skype, conference, or not at all. We don't know anything about it. We just know that every Tuesday at 9 a.m., rankings come out. And Ian Garry has said he wants to fight somebody ranked higher than him. I don't blame Ian Garry, by the way. I'm not begrudging his motivation. I'm just asking you, if you were in that spot, would you share that? It's very interesting for me to hear the importance of a ranking from a guy who has a perfect record. The only thing that he could control were his hard work, his courage, his discipline, his skills are all encompassed in that record, of which, speaking of Ian Garry, is perfect. I believe 15-0. If I'm wrong, 16-0. I don't need to know it, by the way. The point is, he's won so many I've forgotten, but I haven't forgotten how many got the jump on him. Because it's none. And I do hear a number of people talk like this. I hear them. I was there the day it was decided that rankings were going to come out. And maybe that is what's made me so cynical. But I was there. And it was exciting news because it gave talking heads like me a jumping off point. And anytime you can create controversy, you can create cash. And there is nothing more unfair in the world than having people judge people. It's why it was so important. So when the fighters have taken this and made this their why and made this so important, something that was meant to be silly, right? It's Dogecoin all over again. It's been a little bit of a surprise for me, but to hear from somebody like Garry, who has got the loudest pop of the night on multiple occasions, who fights nothing but main card, on multiple occasions on pay-per-view. Garry, who is the youngest guy, you want to go down the rankings and just see who's where. By the time you get to Garry, okay, great, stop. Now work the other way. Go right back up the line. But look at their age and nothing else. He's the youngest. He's the youngest. And the only other guy that's going to pop off that page for being completely undefeated is Rakhmonov. It's very interesting what numbers Garry has on his side. But Gary's talking about a number that you can't do anything to control. You can't kiss up to anybody like a teacher. You can't bring them an apple and set it on their desk. You don't even know who's doing it. How many of them are there? Are there anybody? Or is it done by a computer like the BCS? I mean, they literally know nothing, and it just strikes me as a surprise. And who is it that you're copying? Who is it when you sit back and you study the sport, like everything else, every jab that you've ever thought, oh, I can do that same jab. And so you rewound it and you rewatched it and you try to find what the setup was. And you try to find why the jab worked and what was he doing, what was the other guy doing, before you then went and mimicked it and copied it and hoped to land it yourself. Everything that you've ever done in the sport, you saw somebody else do first. And then thought, all right, I'm going to come out and I'm going to duplicate it. I've identified it. That puts me in a different class because most of these dum-dums, my fellow dum-dums, aren't smart enough to even identify things. I have accurately identified it. Now I'm going to go copy it. Okay, great. Who is it that turned down fights, turned down call-outs over known popular commodities, and instead turned to the rankings only, and proceeded with discipline along that path to get a title shot? And why should a guy ranked in front of you fight you? And there's a litmus test to that. If you are willing to fight somebody lower, if you are willing to be in the loft and leave the rope down so somebody else can get up, then yes, a guy in front of you could leave the rope down and possibly you can get up. That's the test. And you will hear guys say it, and they'll say it with conviction. I will only fight guys that bring me closer in the rankings. Well, but then if that guy follows you, if that guy does what you just said, then he can't fight you. You, if your rules get adopted, just eliminated yourself from competition. If you hold strong and true to the conviction that the number 8 guy should only fight 7 on up, then you just stopped 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 from fighting you. And I'll never understand it. And I don't know who it is that did this successfully. I don't know who it is that turned down fights. I don't know who it is that followed their career based on arbitrary numbers known as rankings, as opposed to success in the cage against fellow guys that could get on a main card of a pay-per-view. If you are a main card pay-per-view fighter and you can get matched up with a fellow main card pay-per-view fighter, that's who you fight, not the ranked guy. And generally those will go hand in hand, but not all the time. And I will never get tired of telling you the story of Daniel Cormier, who they wanted to fight for the belt, who appeared to be one win away from fighting for the belt. who was a co-main event of a Ronda Rousey card, and who on 8 days' notice fought a friend of mine named Pat Cummings. And Pat was a barista at the time. His manager called the coffee shop. They said there's no personal calls, and they hung up on him. His manager had to go through the drive-through line to see Pat. And the manager's holding the phone and tells Pat, I have Dana White on the phone. I need to talk to you. And handed the phone to Pat. And Dana White said, is it true that you think you can beat Daniel Cormier? Is it true that you used to train with him? Is it true that he cried during a workout? Great. Turn around to your manager. Do you see them? And this isn't the manager that pulled up in the car. This was the manager of the coffee shop. And Pat said, yes, I'm looking right at them. Dana White said, good. Tell them I'm in the UFC now. I quit. That's a true story. 100% Daniel won that fight. Daniel got a standing ovation for that. Daniel got a $50,000 bonus for that. And Daniel next fought for the world championship. Nowhere in there or anywhere else will you see that you have to fight and beat ranked guys. Particularly if you're the youngest guy. And particularly if you're the most popular guy. And particularly if your name is Ian Garry and your record is something and O. Protect that O. And don't worry or think about any other numbers. I promise you, Ian Garry, everything else will take care of itself.